conflict and toxicity.
Because they think it's cheaper to keep her. You know, you look great for the shark that you are.
It is a marital asset subject to division.
We are here with episode 3 of Uncoupled. And in the past episodes, we've talked a lot about our rights, common misunderstandings. And in today's episode, we'll be talking about the practical steps. So what you can do if you're going to file divorce, what are the practical things you can do in this early stage? And I'm MaryJ. I'm Georgia's divorce realtor, and I'm here with me my amazing family law attorney, Maiya Safikovs. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, MaryJ.
Thank you. And this is the place where we have real conversations with real people. So, Maiya, as always, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You know, you look great, honestly.
So do you.
You do. And, you know, I feel like you're always so very well put together.
So
for the
are
shark
you.
that you are.
Thank you.
You carry it well. And we want to talk about, this is a conversation I personally have been looking forward to because I'm a practical person and I love to know like what I can do. I'm sure you've experienced this with me as your client in the past. I was always like, what can I do? What can I do? And I was like that helper, right?
Yes.
I always wanted to do something. So for someone like me who's like, you know, that nervous energy or just loves to help or do things and they want to be involved in that preparing of filing divorce. They haven't filed yet. They've had their conversation with you. And what would you tell them? Like, go home and do this then. You want to do something? Go home and do this.
Well, you were the quintessential client because you were overly prepared. You were ready to handle business. And all of that has translated into your career as a real estate agent. I see that now. Yes, I see that now that you work with my clients, that you are always overly prepared and that you are always ready to handle business and your attention to detail. Now, I just have to segue into just a quick story and shout out to you when you listed one of my clients' home for sale. The amazing photos that you did, the amazing videos that you did, the complete attention to detail that you did, and that caused them to get the best out of the situation, you know, and your attention to detail with the contracts. It was just amazing. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
But for individuals who are like you, who want to be prepared in the divorce process, I would suggest coming up with researching a list of professionals. Divorce is not something that you can do isolated. You're going to need to rely on professionals. Allow those professionals to help guide you as you make decisions in those certain aspects of your life. So, number one, I always advocate for counseling, because you want to make sure that your mental is in alignment as you go through this process. Even if you're going through an amicable divorce, you want to make sure that you are mentally capable. And that deals with spiritual alignment as well. So you want to make sure that you're being spiritually fed also. Then you want to go ahead and come up with a screenshot. In all of divorces throughout the state of Georgia, our Uniform Superior Court rules require that you have to submit something called a domestic relations financial affidavit.
Okay.
So we use the acronym.
Tell us what that is.
We call it a DERFA, DRFA.
Okay.
But the DERFA is a document that gives the court a screenshot of your financial temperature. So, for example, it shows everything that you have coming into your home, such as income, everything that you have going out of your home, your expenses, as well as your assets and your debts.
Okay.
Judges will use these documents when determining how to divide up the marital estate, also when determining child support and alimony, and things like attorney's fees, if there should be an attorney's fee award.
Okay.
The key word in the domestic relations financial affidavit is affidavit. So that means it's a sworn statement. So when you sign it, you're going to be signing in the presence of a notary. You want to make sure that everything that is contained within that financial affidavit is accurate and true. It's almost like a budget.
Okay.
And so because if it's not accurate and true, you know, it's an affidavit. So technically you could be subject to the crime of perjury. That doesn't typically happen. But what does happen is your credibility can be impeached. You don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So you should start early. Go ahead and start determining your budget. Look and find out how much you spend on utilities each month. How much are you spending on your grocery budget each month? How much are you spending for your hygiene items each month, clothing each month, children's expenses? That will allow the judge to see what it is that you have and what it is that you need moving forward. So it's going to help the judge when making determinations about alimony as well as the division of assets and debts.
And I'm sure that maybe the wife's her document is very different from the
Yes,
men's.
yes, it is. And there are certain expenses that are necessary.
Mhm.
So the beautiful thing about I've been practicing law now for 18 years, and the beautiful thing about the evolution of our court system is that it's becoming more diverse. And so when I first started practicing, it was as if I had to explain about Black female hair and why
Mm.
it is important
How
to
to
make sure.
justify that on
Yes,
that
but yeah,
$600.
that expense. But now it is something that judges recognize and they understand that that is needed.
Mhm.
And so when they see that number or that figure on a financial affidavit,
Yeah,
they're not shocked by it. The same with getting haircuts. We know that those things are needed
yeah,
for the appropriate maintenance and upkeep.
yeah, yeah. I mean, hey, it costs a lot, right? But,
Yes.
we do it because we know that we also, like you mentioned, the playing field is level now. We have to go
Hmm.
out there and we have to work just as hard. We have businesses we're running, so we have to make sure that we look put together just as
Yes.
much as the men.
Yes. And
Mhm.
then, so use the financial affidavit. If you just simply Google Georgia and domestic relations financial affidavit, template or sample, one will come up. Go ahead,
Okay.
print that off and start using that to build a budget. And this is going to help you so you know exactly what it is that you need to ask a judge for. Um, Come up with a plan for what you need so that you can be specific with what you are asking the judge for. So, if you have been financially dependent upon your spouse, you want to make sure that you have a plan for the amount of money that you need and why you need that money.
Mhm.
We it's very difficult to get permanent alimony now unless you have been married for an extremely long time. The trend more so is for what we call rehabilitative alimony or bridge alimony. So that's for a spouse who has been out of the workforce for a while, and we need some type of funds to get him or her back
Back,
into the
out there.
workforce.
Uh-huh.
And so if you want rehabilitative alimony, have a plan. I want you to look for what you're going to do. Do you need more education? Do you need to go get a degree? Are you going to go and get a certification? If so,
Yes.
what are going to be the costs for that?
Right.
How much do you need if you are going to be leaving the marital residence and you're going to be selling the marital residence?
Right.
You need to be able to show this is how much, this is where I want to live, judge.
Mhm.
This is why I need to live here.
Mhm.
I want to make sure that the children can still attend in the same school district. But this is how much I will need. Even after I get my equity from that house, I'm still going to need this amount each month to make sure that I can live in this area.
Right.
If you have a detailed plan and it is a realistic plan and you can show the judge that it will work and that it is fair, then you will more than likely be awarded that.
Okay. Sounds good.
Hmm.
So, and this is a document you said you can just print out offline and start
Yes.
filling it out now
Yep.
just to kind of get an idea.
Yes. Normally, at the conclusion of my consultations, if individuals are headed towards divorce,
Mhm.
but they're just thinking about it, I encourage them to go ahead and fill that out.
Okay.
And it helps that the person filling it out, it helps you to understand what you're going to be able to do.
Yeah.
With a divorce, you're taking a double household income or two income household and you're severing it. So it's single income.
Right.
So you've
Right.
got to figure out how you're going to be able to live.
Manage off of
Hmm.
one income. Yeah.
Yeah. And in the metro
Uh-huh.
Atlanta area, unfortunately, rent is so
Oh,
high.
girl, I know. It is
Yes.
seriously going up. I'm telling people,
It's
like,
better to buy.
when the interest rates go down, because they will start to level back down again, we expect to see that interest rate decline, hopefully to up to, they said, about 1%
Hmm.
by the end of the year. So we may start to see a steady decline in that interest rate. And when you do, that is going to make a huge difference for home buyers. And the cost of renting versus owning a home is going to be more, we're going to find that the cost of owning a home is going to be more beneficial than renting.
Yes.
So,
Yeah,
mhm.
some mortgages are $1,200 per month
Yeah.
for an entire house
Yep.
where, you have to go out and get a
Yeah.
$2,500 a
Yeah.
month rental home for 3
Exactly. Because
bedrooms.
you've got to think about it. People are continuously increasing the rent, and they are going to continue to give like increase on their
Yeah.
rent. So whereas if you purchased a home, you're locked into your mortgage payments.
Mhm.
The only thing that may change is if you were to have taxes, increasing your taxes.
Yes.
Right. And so, but other than that, I mean, what you have as your mortgage payment is your mortgage payment. So I always recommend purchase a home if you can, because then you're able to at least come up with a number that fits within your budget.
Now, you mentioned getting ready, and that's
Mhm.
one thing that individuals should do to get ready, pull his or her credit,
Absolutely.
to see what is your credit score,
Yes.
what can you potentially be qualified for,
Mhm.
and then go ahead and take the steps to do whatever is necessary to rebuild your credit.
Right. Right.
I would suggest pulling your credit, pulling a credit report. You don't need to pay for it. I believe we get
Mhm.
one annually free,
Yes.
and determining what your credit score is, and then looking at and analyzing your credit to determine what are some things that you can do to be proactive to clean up your credit so that you can qualify to go and purchase another home.
Yes.
I would also try to connect with a lender.
Mhm.
Well, first things first, I would get with the listing agent to
Right.
determine what my possibilities are. Then look at what you may be able to possibly afford to
Mhm.
purchase.
Mhm.
Get with the lender and see if you can get pre-qualified.
Y'all have heard it. This is Attorney Maya telling you to get with the realtor
Yes. Yes, that's the
and
first step.
check with your mortgage lender.
Mhm.
Now, oftentimes folks will do the math and they'll say, "Wow, my credit is horrible," right? And we've seen that. And I do want to mention that you do have programs out there to help you to build your credit, to help you to qualify. And there's alternative programs out there for first time home buyers. So there's a lot of options if you do move forward and you start to look at your credit and you find that the numbers are not where you want them to be or the money is not there for the down payment. We do have programs for you. So it's always best to still go and find out from a realtor what are your options and investigate that first. So, and I provide a lot of those services. So check out my website, MaryJ ATL, and you will find that a lot of the information that we're talking about is on my website. So,
And you want to not build obstacles to your own success, right? So,
right.
an example would be if you're a housewife and your credit is not established, and you in your head you're just thinking, well, I cannot afford a house because my credit is 450.
Hmm.
Well, that doesn't mean that you will never be able to get your own home. You can
Right.
sit down with a professional, determine what can be done to establish and build your credit. It
Yes.
could be, if you're starting early enough, it could be something as simple as getting a secured credit card
Hmm.
and paying off that balance each month and establishing credit. And within 6 months, your score
Yes.
could have jumped tremendously.
Hmm.
So do not foreclose your own opportunities of success by negative thinking. Use the tools that are available to you, consult with the professionals, and outline your goals and your plan for your future.
I love it.
Mhm.
Perfect. So, what about paperwork? So, we know that there is a lot of folks who have a lot of paperwork at home. They don't know what they need to collect and what you're going to need, what could help them, what could hurt them.
Mhm.
But let's talk about like what are the things that you would say a person needs to kind of go get record of. I know I would suggest that if they have paperwork on their mortgage value,
Mhm.
their expenses, I would recommend anything having to do with a HELOC or additional liens on the property or HOA fees, anything like that. I would recommend they grab and they have ready so that they can understand their equity. What else? What else could they come up with? What paperwork would they need?
So if you have a home and you have a premarital or a separate interest in that home, meaning that you put money down, that was your separate money
Mm.
that you or money that you had before you got married, you want to have proof of that.
So
Um,
this is just bank records or
bank
something like that?
records,
Okay.
your closing documents. It's always perfect to have your closing documents
Okay.
and any bank records. For a divorce, we're generally going to need bank records, credit card statements. If you have any other types of lines of credit or vehicle loans, we're going to need those statements. Proof of payment of expenses, we're going to need proof of that, specifically if you're paying on behalf of a minor child. Even if you are paying for an adult child, something like tuition, you want to have evidence of that in case the judge would need to consider that. And taxes,
Mhm.
W-2s,
Mm.
1099s, proof of business expenses. If you do have a business, I would recommend if it's turning a profit, go ahead and make the investment and get profit and loss statements. That's going to help tremendously. If you have loans that are affiliated with that business, you need to get a copy of those loans. You want to get copies of your health insurance policies, life insurance policies. If you have a health insurance policy and there's a difference in the amount of how much it costs to cover you, as well as the premium cost for you plus additional children, get that documentation from your human resources department because that's going to help you with child support. Also, we're going to need
Okay.
your pay stubs and your pay advices.
Wow. So a lot to prepare. So this is, I think, why it's important to have an attorney, someone who
Hmm.
can kind of guide you through this. Because of course no one's gonna be able to kind of have all these documents ready up front.
Hmm.
So like you would say, here's the one document that I think we need first to start. What would that one document be out of all of what you mentioned?
The domestic relations financial affidavit.
Okay.
Yes, that document is extremely important because it summarizes everything for the court and it will give you a roadmap as to what you need to gather. Once you
Mm.
sit down with your domestic relations financial affidavit, it will prompt you with getting those additional documents. So, for example, you're going to have to list out the present value of your 401k. That will prompt you to go and get your 401k statements.
The receipts.
Yep, as well as all of your bank statements, all of the invoices for expenses that you pay on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
So that's the most important document.
So what about folks who just don't have any documentation and they're like, I think it's this number because they didn't track their business expenses?
So that causes a
Tricky.
quagmire.
Yeah.
It's going to be based upon if you filed your taxes for your business,
Okay.
how is your
And you know
business
there are folks out
incorporated.
there that just don't file their
Mhm.
taxes, right? So
Yes, and unfortunately, courts, they do not, give a pass for that.
Mm.
And I had one judge state that, we all are residents or citizens of the United States, and that's what we're supposed to do, file
Ooh.
our taxes.
Ooh.
And so you don't get a pass
Ooh.
just by saying I didn't do it.
Mm.
And the judge isn't going to guesstimate what you made or what you didn't make.
Gotcha. All right. Y'all hear that? All right, so this is one that I love. You often hear this phrase, it's cheaper to keep her,
Yes.
right? And so this is why people oftentimes, they use that as a delay tactic
Mhm.
or reason to kind of stay in a marriage. They have a lot of thoughts about, how long they want to kind of like ride this out because they think it's cheaper to keep her. What are like the real true costs? Like, what do you think? Is it really cheaper to keep her in the legal world? Like, do you feel like that has basis, or do you feel like, I don't know?
It definitely can have basis. It's not uh, it's not heartwarming to hear that adage, but it's true.
Mm,
There are situations where if the parties are get a divorce, then more than likely the other party will get half of everything.
mhm.
But it's not as if that half is going away ever. If you just stay, you're just only delaying the inevitable. The
Mm.
only thing that may age out is child support. If you stay
Yeah.
married, the
Right.
children may emancipate and you may not have a child support obligation.
Right.
But other than that, the other party will still be entitled to certain things.
Yeah.
Now, if the goal is to stay married while the other party gets on his or her feet and becomes more independent so that you may be able to erase the desire or the need for alimony, that might be another strategy, but it's
Uh-huh.
just delaying the inevitable. And then you have to determine if the monetary value of your assets, if that is better than the value of your mental and
Mm.
spiritual peace that you
Yes.
would have and your
Yes.
happiness.
That's true.
And then whether or not just dealing with self, but if you're in a house full of children, are you in a toxic environment? Are you exposing your children to a toxic environment to a point where they may repeat some of the patterns and the
Right.
things that they are seeing? And then you're just creating additional generations of
Mhm.
conflict and
Yeah.
toxicity.
Right.
Is that worth kind of polluting your lineage for
Yeah.
to protect your
For
401k?
what?
Yeah.
For what? Just to have 5 more years, buying yourself 5 more years,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
So, I agree. I do think, yeah, it can be cheaper to keep her,
Hmm.
but in some cases, it's actually more expensive,
Yes. Yes, and then
you know?
sometimes if you stay,
Yeah.
in a marriage for a longer period of time, you are just causing if the other party does not go and become more independent, you're just creating a longer history of financial
Of you having to support
dependency.
them,
Yep,
right?
and so
Let's
that
talk
just
about that a little
strengthens
bit.
alimony
So what are
claims.
the, what are the milestones for divorce for where you say, okay, if somebody's thinking, well, if I stay with this person 1 more year, 5 more years, you know?
It's going to be based upon if the other party has a need for the spousal support.
I see.
If the other party is going to go and get a job and a good paying job, then it may help. So I consulted with someone a while ago, and he wanted to stay a little longer because his spouse was going to go and get another job. And she did go and get another job, but the job that she got was at a fast food establishment.
Okay.
And so it was like, okay, well, she's got a job, but she's making $10 an hour.
Yeah.
You're still going to have to pay alimony
Right.
no matter what,
Uh-huh.
unless she goes and gets another job. She had been out of the workforce for a substantial amount of time, and they had a large number of children. So
Okay.
she's going to get alimony.
So we're looking for more of an impactful change, not just some
Correct.
small movement.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Great. So it may be cheaper to keep her, it may not be. You gotta kinda see
Yes.
what you value the most too, right?
And I know we spoke, in a couple of our other sessions, we spoke about a common misconception.
Mhm.
Well, I don't want to label this as a misconception, but an unknown fact.
Okay.
So I own a law practice
Mhm.
and I'm married.
Uh-huh.
If my husband and I were to cease being happily married, my husband would be entitled to a portion of my law practice because I started my
Mm.
practice during the course of my marriage. So it is a marital asset subject to division. So the same holds true for any type of business started during the marriage. It could be a
Gotcha.
professional business like a doctor, a physician's office, a
Mhm.
veterinarian practice, or it could be a different type of business, trucking business.
Yes.
That's what I see a lot. I deal a lot with dividing up trucking businesses. Any other type of business, a spouse is entitled to an equitable share of that
Even if the
business.
spouse didn't do
Yep.
much but maybe answer calls or something?
Even if the spouse never contributed anything to the business, it is still subject to equitable division because of fairness, right? And um, one example is one of my clients owned a lawn company, and that lawn company ended up doing extremely well. Well, the my client was out. mowing lawns and, dealing with all of these contractors working under him into the wee hours of the night. And because of that, his wife was at home with the children. And so she did not work so that
That's your
his
sweat
career,
equity though,
yes.
really, isn't it?
Mhm. And so
Yeah.
he was completely fine and
Mhm.
understood that
Mhm.
she was going to be entitled to a portion of that. Now, we used it as an offset. So he was able to, and this is a common practice. You can use things as offsets. So in that situation, he kept the lawn business 100% free and clear from any claim from her.
Okay.
And in exchange for that, she got a larger percentage of the equity from the home, which
Right.
was going to help her to be able to go out and get another home for her and the children.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
Yes, absolutely. So you don't always have to it doesn't have to be a cash payout, in other words, it can be a
Correct.
property division alignment, you know.
Yes, and
Mhm.
so, in a divorce, especially when there are a number of assets, we do something called a marital balance spreadsheet. That
Okay.
marital balance spreadsheet is going to list out each of the assets and the value of that asset or equity, and then you would show who's going to get what,
Yes.
and then it puts in layman's term for the court who would be getting what percentage.
Mm,
And so we know that if a court is going to try to give everybody 50-50, we know how to move that around. If the court is going to give one party
right.
60 and the other party 40, we know how to move those assets and those debts
Yeah,
around.
and this is the document that I would need as the realtor for the closing in order to have the property equity divided according to the court order.
Right. And so you want to, as the realtor, and I know from a number of closing attorneys, they want for that order to be crystal clear
Yes.
so that there's no confusion.
Yeah.
And they are not left to decipher what a judge or a trier of fact meant.
Right. Mhm. All right. So what about the housing circumstances? Is there anything practical that folks can say, okay, you know, if we're living under the same roof, we know that tensions are there. Is there something that you would recommend as like an evaluation to say this is the situation where you should absolutely say, we talked about this a little bit before, but let's dive into this
Hmm.
practically. What does that look like for the parties to having a conversation in the quiet of their homes about you need to move out because this. It's more practical for you to move out or for me to leave or for you to
Hmm.
stay. How do we have, how does a person have that conversation with their spouse to move to adjusting their living circumstance in a way that is more beneficial to a good outcome, right? So, what does that conversation look like if you were to put yourself in their shoes and you were to suggest a living circumstance adjustment? What would that conversation be?
So, first, I would gauge if the relationship is there to be able to have a very cordial
That's
relationship
true, cause
where emotions won't run high.
right?
Then if you start having the conversation and it looks like emotions are going to run high, cease having the conversation and enlist the assistance of a mediator.
Okay.
The
Mhm.
majority of the counties in the metro Atlanta area, they're going to require mediation for to get a divorce um, before you can proceed with a final hearing. You can hire a mediator who is a trained neutral party, very objective. The mediator would not be representing either
Yes.
party. The mediator would be there to help to negotiate some type of settlement. You can employ the use of a mediator, and they bill an hourly rate. Some maybe 150 per hour, some 250 per hour, but it's worth it to keep the peace and to come up with a structured plan for how the parties will separate the households on a temporary basis.
Mhm.
You will need to then determine who can actually afford the home. You need to determine if the other party who is moving out of the home, if he or she is going to be forfeiting the appreciation that occurs in the home while he or she is gone. Because if they're not contributing to any of the household bills, should they benefit from the growth in equity that may occur in that home?
Right, right.
You need to determine how those bills are going to be paid. You need to determine also what's going to happen with things like when it comes time to file the taxes, who's going to claim the mortgage interest for the year?
Right, that's another thing, yes.
Yes. So
Mhm.
all of those particulars need to be ironed out.
Yeah.
You need to also look at doing things practically. So, I know one thing that individuals want, they constantly are like, "I want the utilities removed from my name."
Uh-huh,
Well,
right.
that means that there's going to have to be a possible
Reconnection
termination
fee
of
and
those utilities, and then
uh-huh,
there's a reconnection fee. Sometimes a deposit is
right.
required. If you are navigating and through the process in an uncontested fashion, and you're going to be able to wrap up your case in 3 months, it's not worth doing all of that.
Yeah,
As long as you just agree that the bill will be paid on time, just keep it in that party's name.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So now we're entering the coffee talk part of our episode. And this is this segment where we like to kind of have some conversations off camera, but on camera. So all of this information is always, it's not legal advice. We're always just having real conversations, real people, real talk. So we want to talk about some things and I want to ask you some questions,
Mhm.
Maiya. We want to just discuss these topics
Okay.
because they're very controversial a lot of times. And we just want to get to the like root of why these things happen. And we want to kind of talk about what we can do going forward to either dispel myths or address these ongoing issues we
Gotcha.
see. So today's coffee talk question is about the spouse who refuses to leave the home.
Mm.
So it's always that one party who just they're married to the home. Like they don't even care about the relationship. They don't
Mhm.
care about any of that. They just want the home.
Mhm.
So like how do you identify that person and then how do you pull the rug from under them to make them see, I mean, I don't know. Let's just talk about it.
Okay, so legally,
Mhm.
the only way that you can get that person out of the home is with an order. And most judges will not give a court order for that party to leave unless there's some history or some evidence of abuse or some evidence that there's been an act of violence or toxicity. Now, there are some judges. I was in front of a judge not too long ago who said, I'm going to go ahead and ask someone to move because let's go ahead and rip the band aid off now. This is what they're moving towards. So let's go ahead and ask the other party to move. But you have to have a reason for that other party to be able to move. If the other party is not of limited means and has the ability to get another place and it's not going to cause any type of financial hardship, then you can advocate for that position. Um, Other than that, the only other way is to try to negotiate that and to say, I need you to leave. This is what I want, etc. Now, sometimes because most courts will not make that other party leave, sometimes you can come up with a cohabitation agreement. And this
Mhm.
is where we carve out who will be using what portion of the house and when. So that may look like, all
Yeah,
right, wife will have
I've
all
seen
of
that.
upstairs, husband will
Mhm.
have all of downstairs. Wife
That
will be
actually works
permitted.
out pretty well too. I
It
mean, I've
does.
seen it work out pretty well, and even in home sales scenarios, they keep their part clean.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And they're responsible for that section.
And it
Mhm.
ensures that the bills are being paid during that time period.
Mhm.
And so you would say, I have access to the kitchen between these hours. He has access to the kitchen during these hours, and divide up the rest of the house in that way. And that's just a temporary bandage to
Situation,
put
yeah.
on until the final divorce is entered.
Especially when times are hard and you can't afford to move.
Yes.
So, I can
Yeah,
see
those
that.
are things to consider.
Yeah. What is it about the house? What do you think? Because I've got my own opinions about why people are so we know that the house is the heart of the
Yes.
of the relationship. We know it's the heart of most people's life. It's where
Mhm.
you spend your time, your family,
Mhm.
your I mean your holidays. It's where you spend, that time bonding with your children. It's where you come home, you're comfortable. It's where you maybe started the
Yes.
biggest, most important moves of your life.
Yep.
Maybe you have certain things like I renew my vows in my
Yes.
home, so sometimes your home is very sentimental.
Mhm.
But what do you think it is? I mean,
I think it's all of that. There are memories that can be in a home. Sometimes individuals see homes as their sweat equity that they put into it. Like
mhm.
they've improved the home.
Yeah,
That's where they dreamed of being there when they retire, of being there with their grandchildren. So I think it's a marriage of expectations, hopes and dreams, as
yeah,
well as memories. All of that is in a cauldron together, and that's what creates that emotional attachment to homes.
yeah. And sometimes you do have to see the grass is greener on the other
Mhm.
side. What I like to do is take folks out to
Yes.
see other houses, to see what else is out there.
Mhm.
And it's just to kind of give folks an idea as to what else is out there. So, you have a nice house, yes,
Yes.
but you'll be happier somewhere else as well. You'll be just as happy and you can rebuild what you had in a new house as well.
Yes, and remembering that, um, a house is a structure. There are other facets that you have to look at, such as community, neighborhood,
Mhm.
uh, proximity to certain things, and creating new memories. And that's what,
Yes.
unfortunately, that's a big part of divorce. You're going to be getting rid of those or kind of
Yeah.
separating yourself from those older memories and creating new ones.
Yes. All right. Well, we're back from Coffee Talk, and I'm here with attorney Maiya Safikovs, family law attorney, and I'm Jamila MaryJ Issa, and I'm here to have a short little conversation, real life. This is Uncoupled, episode 3. Thank you, Maiya, for being here with
Thank you for
us.
having me.
Okay, so we're going to talk about a little bit about, affordability, housing. We'll talk about lifestyle reality checks.
Mhm.
We want to kind of get into practical considerations um for folks to assess kind of how they're financially, like where you're at. Folks come in with these wild thoughts about, "Oh, I could afford, to I'll divorce this person and I can afford to give them, pay for the house and I'll pay for." They make a lot of wild offerings just because they want to get out of the
Mhm.
situation. And maybe men do this more and they'll offer to pay a lot of child support, or they'll offer to pay for private schooling, or they'll pay for, they make all these wild offerings and they don't realize they have to pay for themselves to live too.
Yes.
So let's talk about that. What do you see?
Well, that's very dangerous. That happens a lot. And it's overpromising. And I actually had to caution a client this week about overpromising because right now he is doing well financially. But I have, in my lifetime, I've lived through 3 major recessions. And so I have seen
Mhm.
those who have been feasting have to go to a state of famine. And so
Mm.
I always caution my clients about committing to things that are outside the scope of what the court could make you do. So, for example, neither parent can be forced, absent an agreement, to do anything after a child emancipates or graduates from high school.
Okay.
So the court cannot direct or demand that a party pay for college,
Mhm.
pay for a vehicle after
Right.
college, do any of that. If a party agrees to do that, that's great. But that needs to be a gentleman's agreement. I would not have that put within the four corners of a document because if you fail to do it, maybe because of financial complications, then you would be held in contempt of court.
Yeah.
So I don't like it when clients overpromise, and especially overpromising things that are outside what a court could actually order you to do.
And there are some judges out there that do try
Hmm.
to help folks out when they do that. I've
Yes.
seen that, especially Judge Adams.
Yes. Yes.
He's real good at
He's excellent.
cautioning
Yes.
our young men.
Yes, he's excellent. There are a lot of judges who will, caution what can be done and what is not supposed to be done. But then there's
Mhm.
some judges who don't have grace and who
Yeah.
may say, "Well, you decided to come in here as a pro se or self-represented litigant, so
Mhm.
you're going to have to deal with the consequences of that."
Mhm.
And so, again, that's why it's always important to consult with a professional,
Yes.
so a lawyer, to determine what
Yeah.
it is that you would be required to do. And I know that there are a lot of great parents who will say, "I'm going to always provide for my child, even once they become an adult." That's wonderful, and I encourage that. That's an excellent attitude to adopt, but we just do
Don't
not.
sign it.
Yes, we
Don't put
do
it on
not make that
paper.
as into a contract that's incorporated
Right.
into a decree.
Right. You can
Mhm.
do that under the table all you
Yes.
want.
Mhm.
Okay. Love it.
Yep.
All right. And then what are some early awareness? We talk about, housing decisions. I know that we always need to be kind of aware of where, the market is shifting. And, we are thinking and, we have a lot of research to suggest that the housing market is going to level off, that things are going to improve. We see that houses are sitting in the market longer. But we believe the prices are going to start to go down a little bit and level off with, and interest rates are going to go down a little bit. And so the market is going to kind of level itself off, and we'll see more buyer affordability in the
Okay.
upcoming months.
Wonderful.
So, folks may have more choices and more options when it comes
That's
to getting
wonderful.
started again. Um, so, in the heat of an argument, when folks are starting to think about, moving out um, and starting to try to, make things for themselves, maybe get another property, should they be doing that during the marriage? Should they be going off and buying that second home if they're still married?
No.
Okay.
Unless there's an agreement, I would not recommend that. And I mean, there needs to be an ironclad written agreement that says that the parties agree that this separate home is not going to be a marital property, or how they're going to uh, resolve with that property. So, are they going to say, well, he's the party buying that property is going to forfeit a certain percentage of interest in the marital residence? But I would not
Mhm.
recommend that unless there is an agreement. If that is done and you just have to do that, just understand that that is going to be subject to equitable division.
Mhm. Okay.
And so that means all the funds that were sunk into that property. So if there was a down payment, then that's going to be considered equitable division as well,
Even
subject
if
to
you
equitable
spent your
division.
own funds to acquire the property, it's
Well,
still
remember,
subject. Yes.
there's no when you are married, unless it's from a premarital account,
Mhm.
there's no such thing as your own
Your
funds.
own funds.
So
Yeah.
if you are going and working somewhere, it doesn't matter if you're a W-2 employee or if you are generating income from your own business, all of that is those are marital funds.
Yeah.
And so the only way that that scenario that you just set forth would come into play is if you used inherited funds or premarital funds
Uh-huh.
for that.
And a gift coming from a family member too, right? That would
Correct.
qualify. Okay. Yeah.
Now,
All
they
right.
have to be specific with the intent. So the donor has to be
Mm,
specific with the intent of the gift. So I just
got it.
litigated a case that deals with that fact pattern. The donor would need to be able to state, did they intend to just give the gift to one
I
person, or
see.
was it given to the couple?
So your father, let's say,
Hmm.
wants to gift his daughter to get out of the marriage situation, a house, would have to specifically put that in writing that this is
Correct.
for
Correct.
the
Or later
hmm.
be available to testify, to
Yeah.
attest to
Yeah.
what that was, or
Right.
provide an affidavit, depending
Right.
on what stage the litigation process is in.
Yeah. And there are a lot of nuances too, a lot to be figured out, and a lot of edge case scenarios
Mhm.
that, you have to almost like take it case by case too, right? Like,
Yes, and that's why it's important to always speak with an attorney.
mhm.
Always speak with an attorney. I
Yeah.
remember years ago, I would hear, "Oh, I have an attorney on retainer." I mean, this was when I was a little girl. A lot of my parents' friends would say, "Oh, I have such and such on retainer," and I never understood why.
Yeah.
Well, now I understand why. They were making more informed decisions. This was before we had Google and internet searches. So they would go and consult with attorneys
Yes.
when making these minute decisions that could possibly have a huge impact
Right.
on the trajectory of their life.
Yeah. Yeah. Super important. All right. Well, I think we answered all of the questions that I wanted to ask, but I've got one final one for you. Why do you think people hesitate or wait so long to move on divorce? Is it because of is it a pattern you're seeing in the court system that you think is maybe deterring people and you've seen a consistent trend where people are like, I don't know. Or is it something else going on that, is between the spouses? Is there a trend, a pattern that you could identify? What do you think?
Well, something that I have been noticing is, and I don't know what's going on with society,
Yeah.
but I believe that people are finally figuring out that the grass isn't always greener. And so a lot
Mm.
of the couples who I've had divorces with, I found out that they get back together. I was invited to a wedding
Okay.
of a party that I divorced. I represented the
Oh.
wife during the divorce, and that's becoming a common trend because it's slim pickings out here,
Yeah, yeah,
and also I believe that individuals are maybe hesitant because they're fearful of the financial repercussions that
yeah.
come along with the divorce.
They don't wanna
And
get run through the mud and have
yep,
to deal with the financial
and
breakdown.
and I keep hearing Georgia is a female friendly state or Georgia is a wife friendly state. That's not true. That's not true at all. Um, I believe that well, it depends court by court, but I believe that all litigants get a fair playing field when it comes to the division of assets. It may be a little bit different when it comes to alimony, but I am certain that all parties, when it comes to equitable division, they get a fair play. So, to combat some of those hesitations,
Yeah.
it is important to speak with an attorney and not just any attorney.
Mhm.
You want to speak to the attorney in the area where you live, an attorney in the area that practices
Okay,
where you
tell us
live
why.
because each court is different and each judge is different. And
Gotcha.
so, for example, in Gwinnett County, there are superior court judges. And when you file, your case is assigned to a superior court judge, but you could show up and you may not be heard by that superior court judge
Mhm.
because there are magistrates who sit in and sit by designation for the superior court judges. The
Yes.
same is true in Fulton County. In Fulton County, we have a family law division bench, and so we have the elected superior court judges, but then we have judicial officers, which
Mhm.
are judges who are
Right,
vested with powers
right.
to assist the superior court judges.
Mhm.
And so sometimes they will preside over temporary hearings and sometimes final hearings,
Yeah.
so long as a litigant hasn't objected by filing a certain instrument. So you have to know those nuances and you have to know your judge. So, you mentioned Judge Gregory A. Adams.
Mhm.
He is a fine judge and
He's awesome.
he's
I
wonderful.
can say he's
He's wonderful.
one of the
But
best.
if you've practiced in front of him, then you pretty much know what he's going to do,
Yeah.
how he's going to rule,
And
and
if he's listening, shout out.
he's a wonderful judge. Yes, and so the more you know your judge,
Mhm.
the better the experience will be. And so you want to go to a practitioner who is aware of the bench and the inner workings of that bench.
Right. I like to see when judges are there to find a way to almost serve both sides.
Mhm.
They're very neutral and they're not there to take sides. They're there to look for true fairness and a good
Mhm.
outcome for everyone. So that's always a nice thing, and to see that out of attorneys. And you've always been that person too. I've
Thank you.
seen you work the cases that I've seen, and you have been very fair to the other party, even when there was a need for vindictiveness and to just run them through the mud. You have still kept, a level head in saying, we're going to give a little, we're not going to take everything, even though you could
Mhm.
have.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
So Always been that great party. Well, Maiya, I
Well,
wanna
one more thing
okay,
I wanted to
yes,
share.
sure. Yeah, let's do it.
Something that when people will consult with me, they will say, well, my sister got this in her divorce, or my friend got this
Mm.
in her divorce. And it's different. It's different. Each fact pattern is different. Each
Mhm.
jurisdiction is different.
Yes.
Each judge is different. So you cannot base your situation off of another party's situation. So
Yeah.
that's just important to
Uh,
note.
and let's talk about that a little bit because
Sure.
I think a lot of people do ask around first
Mhm.
before they move forward, and that's kinda how they determine how they're gonna move forward
Mhm.
based off of what they heard. So, do you see, that there's a repetitive pattern of folks coming in and trying to kind of almost, like, replicate something they've seen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And
Like, I
it
want that same child support payment, and I
mhm.
want this same.
But there could be a differing income. So some will say, well, I my sister gets $1,500 a month for 2 children. Why am I getting less for that than that for 3 children? Well, your sister may have been married to a higher earning person.
Yes.
So it's just all every case is different. There
Mhm.
is no cookie cutter approach to each case. And the majority of the judges will look at each case on a they will analyze each case on a case by case basis.
Yeah. And this is where I think also staying with the same we talked about having yourself surrounded by professionals
Mhm.
and having that network of people that you connect with that know your situation very well and you know how they operate is so important. Sticking with the same attorney
Mhm.
throughout multiple divorces, if that's the scenario,
Mhm.
right? Because they know your situation. They may know that you have a new marriage and that you need the whoever is, whoever in your past divorce, maybe the visitation schedule was a certain way and maybe you need an adjustment now
Mhm.
because you're in a blended family and you'll get them a different schedule and you want to try to work things out. So I think sticking with the same group of professionals, building your network with the same attorney, getting to know they can get to know you, the same realtor, somebody who can get to know your circumstances and your family situation is so important. Well, thank you so much for being
Thank
here. This
you.
is attorney Maiya Safikovs and I'm MaryJ and this is Uncoupled.